Rain lashed my face as security clutched my elbows, marching me across the parking lot like a criminal. Through the glass walls of the break room, I could see them all lifting crystal flutes, laughing around her. Brooke, with her flawless smile and Harvard degree, colorful balloons drifting against the ceiling tiles, while my personal belongings sat pitifully in a soggy cardboard box under my arm. I caught Elton's gaze, my boss of 3 years, as he raised his glass higher in a theatrical toast, lips shaping words I could read even through the streaked glass and pouring rain. She'll fix your mess. 3 years, 1,095 days of lost sleep, skipped meals, and solving impossible traffic flow equations while they gradually dismantled my entire support team. 3 years of crafting something revolutionary that would change urban mobility forever. We're pursuing alternative methodologies, Elton had declared 30 minutes earlier, sliding an empty box across his glass desk. Someone with, shall we say, more conventional approaches. I didn't beg, didn't shout, just nodded mechanically while something essential inside me folded like aluminum foil. 3 years of my life, my brilliance, my actual blood and sweat, discarded with corporate niceties and passive voice constructions. Dennis, the security guard who used to greet me every morning with a smile, now avoided my eyes as he watched me toss my soaked box into the passenger seat of my 10-year-old hatchback. Protocol, he muttered almost apologetically. I sat in my car, watching the celebration through the rain-streaked windows. They'd been grooming Brooke for months, the rising star with impressive credentials who questioned my methods at every meeting. Wouldn't a traditional framework be more sustainable? She'd ask, never having faced the real-world chaos of an actual traffic grid under stress. I turned the key, and my car coughed to life. Conventional approaches, traditional frameworks. These were code for we don't understand your genius, so we're replacing you with something more familiar. The highway stretched ahead as my windshield wipers battled the downpour. I'd poured everything into that traffic system, my creativity, my intuition, my very essence, and now someone else would claim it. Wait. Before I continue this story, I need to check something with you. If this tale of corporate betrayal is gripping you so far, show some support by hitting that like button right now. Leave a comment if you've ever felt undervalued at work, and make sure you're subscribed to catch the rest of this wild ride. Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. My name is Zephyr, and until 40 minutes ago, I was the lead engineer for one of the most ambitious urban traffic optimization systems ever built. Not the kind you notice on your morning commute. This was the invisible architecture that ensured emergency vehicles always found clear paths, that rush hour flowed instead of stalled, that a city of 2 million moved like a living organism rather than a jammed mess. I didn't look the part of a brilliant engineer. At 32, with untamed auburn hair, rarely styled, and a preference for comfort over corporate fashion, I was easy to underestimate. My colleagues quickly learned that my mind operated differently, seeing patterns where others saw chaos, sensing the rhythm of traffic flow like others might hear music. The apartment was dark when I arrived. No pets, no plants, no waiting partner. Just the hollow echo of wet shoes on hardwood floors. I had given everything to that job, to that system, to solving problems no one else could tackle. My social life had withered like neglected houseplants. My dating apps gathered digital dust. My family had stopped expecting me at gatherings. It was never meant to end like this. 6 months earlier, everything had been different. My project, my intricate, elegant, groundbreaking creation, had earned glowing early reviews. City officials had been stunned by the initial simulations showing 30% reductions in emergency response times. This could save lives, the mayor had said, her eyes shining with genuine amazement. How did you do it? I could never fully explain. The system functioned because I'd spent 3 years deciphering invisible patterns, compensating for weather shifts, crowd psychology, historical data quirks. I had coded my intuition straight into the framework, making thousands of micro adjustments every day that no manual could ever describe. Then Elton hired Brooke. Just to ease your workload, he'd assured me with that thin smile that never touched his eyes. The board wants additional perspectives. Brooke with her immaculate blazers and flawless slide decks. Brooke who had theories for everything but had built nothing. Brooke who slowly appeared in meetings I wasn't invited to. Who somehow gained access to my early-stage designs. Who smiled kindly as I worked late. "You should take better care of yourself," she'd say, while quietly cataloging my methods, my insights, my breakthroughs. The first night after they fired me, my phone stayed silent. The second day, too. They were likely celebrating their brilliant staffing decision. The heart of their operation, my creation, was now in Brooke's polished hands. I sat on my balcony that second night, watching the city lights shimmer through the clearing rain. 3 years of my life, erased with corporate platitudes and a cheap champagne toast to my replacement. I'd been naive to think my brilliance would shield me, that building something irreplaceable would make me irreplaceable. Sleep refused to come. I wandered through my apartment like a ghost, touching unread books, opening cupboards full of quick meals and protein bars. Who was I without my work? What remained of Zephyr when the project that consumed her was stolen away? Dawn arrived on the third day as I brewed bitter coffee, and then it started. My phone lit up, buzzing. Brooke's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring out. 3 minutes later, another call, then another. By noon, I'd counted 7 missed calls, each one spaced closer than the last. By evening, the total reached 12. No voicemails, no messages, just frantic, relentless calling. At midnight, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor surrounded by old notebooks, the physical relics of my thought process, the 19th call came. I watched my phone tremble against the hardwood, imagining Brooke's rising panic as tomorrow's implementation deadline loomed. The system would start, then slowly unravel as real-world complexity crushed her conventional logic. For the first time in days, a smile stretched across my face. Because what they never understood, what they could never truly grasp, was that my traffic system wasn't just lines of code. It was me, my way of perceiving the world, my mental patterns converted into digital form. The system worked because I worked. Because I had poured my unique perspective into every line, every function, every decision path. My notebooks held formulas and sketches. Yes, but not the invisible connections only I could detect. That night, I finally slept deeply, my phone silent beside me. Morning arrived with 27 missed calls. I made coffee and watched sunlight spill gold across my sparse living room. Sunrise washed my sparse living room in gold. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be. No deadlines crushing my ribs. No midnight coding marathons powered by energy drinks and sheer desperation. Just an emptiness stretching ahead like a landscape I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed again. Not Brooke this time, but Iris, the only junior engineer who'd survived the team optimization 6 months earlier. I hesitated, then answered. Zephyr. Her voice was hushed, tight with urgency. It's falling apart. The entire North Quadrant grid froze yesterday. Ambulances couldn't get through. They had to send helicopters for 3 separate emergencies. I stayed silent, listening to her rapid, uneven breaths. Brooke keeps trying to recalibrate using standard parameters, but it's making everything worse. Elton's losing it. The mayor called twice yesterday. That sounds challenging, I replied, my voice steady. Challenging? It's a catastrophe. The board called an emergency meeting. The city's threatening to terminate the contract. Iris paused. They need you. No. I corrected softly. They fired me. They escorted me out while celebrating my replacement. They don't need me. They're dealing with consequences. Zephyr, please. Real people are suffering. That hit me like a punch. Not Elton with his smug arrogance. Not Brooke with her stolen praise. Real people. Ordinary citizens trying to live their lives. I closed my eyes. I have to go, Iris. Wait. I ended the call, set the phone down, and walked to the window. The city spread below me. My city, with its unique pulse and flow, its complex matrix of human movement I'd spent years decoding. People were suffering because of corporate arrogance. The doorbell rang an hour later. I already knew who it was. Elton stood there, his usually polished appearance in ruins, silver hair sticking up, tie loosened, dark circles carved beneath his eyes. "Zeph," he said, attempting an ingratiating smile that clashed with his desperate expression. "May I come in?" I didn't move from the doorway. "Why?" "We need to talk professionally. I don't work for you anymore. Remember the security escort? The champagne toast for my replacement?" He winced. "That was unfortunate timing." "Was it? Or was it exactly what you planned? To humiliate me on the way out?" "Look, we're dealing with technical issues in the rollout. Brooke is brilliant, but she's encountering unexpected variables in your framework." I leaned against the doorframe. "My mess, you mean? Isn't that what you called it when you lifted your glass?" His composure faltered. "I never said—" I read lips. "Elton. A skill I perfected in all those meetings where you talked over me." He straightened, shifting tactics. "The city is facing severe disruption. Emergency services are compromised. This is larger than personal disagreements." "True," I nodded. "A perfect chance for Brooke to showcase those conventional approaches you were so thrilled about." "Zeph, please. We're willing to offer you a consulting contract. Triple your former salary. Just help us stabilize the system." I studied the man who dismissed 3 years of my life as a mess, who watched me be escorted out like a criminal, who toasted my replacement before my chair had cooled. "No. Just like that? Just like that. The same way you fired me." His expression hardened. "This isn't about pride. Lives are literally on the line." "They always were. That's why I worked 60-hour weeks perfecting that system while you slashed my team to boost quarterly metrics. That's why I missed my sister's wedding. Refining emergency vehicle routing. That's why I skipped holidays, vacations, and sleep." My voice stayed calm. "You never cared about lives when it was me sacrificing everything for them." "I'll go to the board," he snapped. "I'll make sure you never work in this field again." I smiled. "Then please do. Tell them precisely how catastrophically you handled this transition. Explain why you fired the only person who understood the system without arranging any knowledge transfer. I'm sure they'll admire your leadership." The color drained from his cheeks. "What do you want? For you to leave my apartment?" After Elton left, I powered off my phone and stepped into a long, steaming shower. Water slid over me as I absorbed what Iris had said. Real people suffering. That truth hung over me like a weight. Whatever Elton and Brooke deserved, the city didn't. I spent that afternoon wandering downtown, witnessing what had become of my system. Traffic lights shifted in illogical sequences. Cars clumped together at intersections. Horns blared nonstop in a chorus of irritation. On one corner, I watched an elderly woman wait 7 entire minutes for a pedestrian signal that never triggered. News vans clustered near City Hall. A reporter stood before a camera, gesturing wildly. Day 5 of what officials now call the grid crisis, with no solution in sight. By evening, my choice was made. Not for Elton, not for the company, for the city. I called Iris. "I need details. What exactly is happening? Her relief was unmistakable. Brooke tried installing her standardized algorithm suite. Everything worked in simulation but collapsed in real conditions. She can't figure out why your code functions in some areas but not others. Why certain intersections adapt while others freeze. Because she's searching for consistent rules where none exist. I explained that the system wasn't built on textbook concepts. It was adaptive, organic. I tried telling her that, Iris said. She keeps insisting your documentation is inadequate. I let out a dry laugh. My documentation is precise. She just doesn't grasp what she's reading. Will you help? Even just guidance? I hesitated. I'll think about it. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number, an address, a time, and 5 words. Please, for the city. Mayor Vivian. I recognized the address. A small cafe far from corporate headquarters. Neutral territory? Clever. Mayor Vivian looked drained when I arrived, the burden of a city in paralysis carved into new lines around her eyes. She rose as I reached her corner table. Thank you for coming, she said, offering her hand. I haven't agreed to anything, I reminded her as I sat. I know. She gestured for coffee. But the fact that you're here means you care about this city the same way you cared when you built a system that could have transformed urban mobility forever. Could have. Your former employer is debating shutting it down entirely, going back to the old system. A strange ache hit me at the idea of my creation being discarded. That would be unfortunate. It would be devastating, she corrected. Emergency response times have jumped 40%. We've had 2 traffic deaths that might have been avoided with quicker ambulance arrival. Schools can't keep buses on schedule. People can't reach their jobs. The server placed our coffee on the table. I curled my fingers around the warm cup, buying a moment. I know you were treated unfairly, the mayor said, her voice soft but steady. I saw your commitment during development. I witnessed the brilliance behind what you built, and I was stunned when I learned you'd been cut from the project. Did they say I was removed? Or that I walked away? She held my gaze. They said you'd moved on to new opportunities. I recognized it as corporate code for something else. They fired me without warning, replaced me with someone who doubted my methods without truly grasping them. They celebrated as security escorted me out. She flinched. I'm sorry. Truly. But right now, 2 million people are suffering because the system you designed, the system that once ran flawlessly, is falling apart without you. It's failing because they assumed anyone could step in without understanding the core architecture. Because they valued credentials over demonstrated success. Because I know, she cut in, and they were disastrously mistaken, but punishing them means punishing everyone else too. I stared into my coffee, torn. The mayor leaned forward, her hand stopping just shy of mine. Help us restore it. Not for them, for the city. I can bring you on directly as a municipal consultant. We can bypass the company completely. They own the system. They licensed it to us. And at this moment, they're breaching the contract by delivering non-functional infrastructure. We have legal leverage. For the first time in days, I felt something spark beyond anger. Possibility. I'd need certain guarantees, I said carefully. Full creative authority. My name on everything. The patents, the research, all of it. And I select my own team. Mayor Vivian's brows lifted slightly. You've thought this through. I'm always thinking. It's my greatest asset and the reason I hardly sleep. She nodded. I'll make it happen. As I walked home from the meeting, my phone lit with a message from Iris. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. Elton says system needs total rebuild. Brooke claiming sabotage in your code. Help. I let out a quiet laugh. Sabotage, naturally, because there was no way Brooke, with her elite degrees and traditional mindset, might simply fail to grasp what I'd engineered. It had to be intentional, malicious even, instead of her own limitations. That night, as I sorted my notes and prepared for what was ahead, I received one last call from Brooke herself. I picked up on the final ring. Zephyr. Her voice was tight, strained. "We need to talk." "We're talking now," I answered. "I know what you did." The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. "And what exactly did I do, Brooke? You know perfectly well. The missing protocols, the unlisted overrides, the deceptively named variables. You built this to make me fail." I laughed, genuinely entertained. "Is that truly what you believe? That I somehow predicted being fired and purposely crafted a system no one else could operate? Then explain why nothing functions the way it should. Maybe it functions exactly as it's meant to. Maybe you simply don't grasp how it's supposed to work." The silence stretched between us. At last, she spoke, her voice smaller. "I need your help. I need your help." 3 short words that must have cost Brooke's pride a great deal. I relished the moment, picturing her standing amid the ruins of what she'd so confidently assumed she could manage. "Interesting," I said, keeping my tone even. "A week ago, you were telling the board that my methodology was unnecessarily complex." "I was wrong," she admitted, the words strained and clipped. "The system it's beyond standard comprehension." "No, it's beyond your comprehension. There's a distinction." Her breathing shifted, a sharp inhale that signaled she was fighting to stay composed. "People are suffering, Zephyr. Whatever you think of me, they don't deserve this." The same argument the mayor had used, the same moral pressure settling on my shoulders. "I'll meet with you," I said finally. "Not at the office. The public library, main branch, 3rd floor study room, tomorrow at 10. "Thank you," she exhaled. "I'll bring everything." "Don't bring anything," I cut in. "No laptops, no tablets. Just you and a pen." I ended the call and stood at my window, watching night fall over the struggling city. Streetlights flickered on in uneven patterns where my system should have been synchronizing them flawlessly with traffic flow. In the distance, sirens wailed. Another emergency crew battling through gridlock my system should have dissolved. Sleep escaped me that night, not from worry, but from ideas racing too quickly to contain. By sunrise, I'd filled an entire notebook with equations, sketches, and a blueprint that extended far beyond repairing what was damaged. The library was nearly deserted when I arrived. Brooke was already waiting, sitting stiffly in the study room, hair pulled tightly back, dark circles haunting her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. "Thank you for coming," she said, rising as I stepped in. I set my notebook on the table. "Let's be clear. I'm not here to rescue your career." "I understand." "Do you? You took my position." You smiled, while security walked me out. "You told everyone you could correct my mistakes." She looked away, ashamed. I didn't know they were firing you that day. But you knew they were removing me." Her silence was answer enough. "Tell me what's happening with the system," I said, opening my notebook. For the next hour, Brooke outlined the chain of failures. The longer she talked, the clearer it became that she'd tried to impose textbook logic onto my fluid architecture, like attempting to govern a living ecosystem with rigid machinery. "It's not logical," she finished. Frustration etched across her face. Sectors that should respond identically react completely differently to the same inputs because they aren't identical. Each sector has its own character. Traffic grids don't have personalities. I turned my notebook toward her. "You're approaching the system as if it runs on static algorithms when it actually responds to thousands of subtle variables you aren't even tracking." She studied my diagrams. "This isn't in any documentation because it can't be captured with traditional methods. It's not about rules. It's about the relationships between factors most engineers dismiss as insignificant. Confusion furrowed her brow. Like what? Like the North Quadrant behaving differently on baseball game days, even after factoring in stadium traffic, because driver psychology shifts. Or how the downtown grid requires different timing when it rains because pedestrians move differently depending on awning locations. That's impossible to codify. Not impossible, just beyond conventional thinking. I closed my notebook. That's why you're failing. Her expression stiffened. So, you'll help? I haven't decided. What would it take? Name your terms. I studied her. This woman who had so confidently stepped into my role, who had dismissed years of my work with casual certainty she could do better. I don't want money, I said finally. I want truth. What does that mean? It means that before I assist anyone, I want the board to fully understand what happened, how my system truly works, why it failed under your management. The complete unvarnished truth, I emphasized. You want me to admit failure? I want accountability from everyone involved. Brooke stared at her hands. Elton will never agree. He's telling the board, your system was fundamentally flawed from the start. That's why he brought me in. Then I guess the city remains paralyzed. I rose to leave, but Brooke reached across the table just shy of touching my arm. Wait, what if? What if I tell the truth without him? At tomorrow's emergency board meeting, I paused. Why would you do that? Because you're right. Because I was wrong. Because this isn't about careers anymore. It's about responsibility. I didn't fully trust her sudden moral clarity, but I nodded. Tomorrow's meeting. I'll be watching closely. As I left the library, my phone rang. Mayor Vivian, I've secured approval for your consulting contract, she said bluntly. Direct with the city, bypassing the company entirely. You can start immediately. Something else is happening first, I replied. A board meeting. I need to witness the results. A board meeting I need to witness. We don't have time for corporate politics, Zephyr. The situation was worsening by the hour. 24 hours wouldn't change the structural problems, but it could determine everything that happened once they were fixed. As a pause, you have a plan. I always have a plan. Some are simply less conventional than others. That evening, Iris called again. Brooke had been locked in closed-door meetings all afternoon. Something is happening. Good, I replied. Is it? Elton is telling everyone the entire project must be scrapped. 3 years of work gone. My work, I reminded her, and it's not going anywhere. The next morning, I dressed carefully in the only professional outfit I owned, a charcoal gray suit I'd worn to my grandmother's funeral 3 years prior. I pulled my unruly hair into a tidy bun, applied minimal makeup, and slid on the pearl earrings my mother had given me for graduation. Today wasn't about corporate aesthetics. It was about power. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 9:30, I strode into company headquarters as if I still belonged there. The security guard, someone other than Dennis, looked up in surprise but said nothing as I headed to the elevator. The executive floor was hushed, tense. Through the glass walls, I could see board members assembling in the main conference room. Elton stood at the head of the table, gesturing with practiced emphasis. Brooke sat to his right, her hands folded tightly. I didn't enter. Instead, I settled into a chair in the adjacent waiting area, directly in Brooke's line of sight. When she eventually looked up, our eyes met. Something passed between us. Perhaps understanding, perhaps a challenge. The board chairman called the meeting to order. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the room. Elton's rehearsed confidence, the board members' concern, Brooke's rigid posture. 10 minutes in, Elton projected graphs highlighting system failures. 15 minutes in, he openly blamed my experimental, undocumented methodology for the collapse. 20 minutes in, Brooke stood. I leaned forward, watching her lips as she began to speak. The board members' expressions shifted from concern to surprise to something approaching shock. Elton tried to interrupt, but the chairman silenced him. Brooke continued, occasionally glancing toward where I sat. Whatever she was saying, it wasn't the narrative Elton had scripted. At precisely 10:37 a.m., the boardroom door opened. A security guard approached. "Miss Zephyr, the board requests your presence." I nodded, rose, smoothed my jacket, and followed him into the lion's den. Silence fell as I entered. Every head turned, some curious, some hostile, some unreadable. "Thank you for joining us," the chairman said, his tone measured. "Miss Brooke has been providing revelatory insight about your traffic system design." I nodded but remained silent. "She asserts that the current implementation failures are not due to flaws in your original design, but to the misapplication of conventional algorithms to your, what did you call it? Adaptive architecture," Brooke replied, ignoring Elton's glare. "Yes," the chairman continued. "She further suggests that you alone fully understand how to operate the system properly, and that your dismissal was precipitous." I turned to Elton, whose face had flushed an unhealthy red. "Precipitous?" I repeated. An interesting word choice for firing the one person who understood the multi-million-dollar system you'd contracted to deliver to the city. "Now see here," Elton began, but the chairman raised a hand. "Miss Zephyr, the situation is critical. The city is threatening legal action for breach of contract. Our reputation is suffering immeasurable harm. We need solutions, not recriminations." I agreed calmly. "Which is why I've accepted a position as direct consultant to the mayor's office, effective immediately." The room erupted in murmurs. The chairman banged a small gavel for order. "You've what?" Elton sputtered. "The city has exercised its contractual right to engage independent expertise," I explained. "When the primary contractor fails to deliver functional infrastructure, that's you. They've hired me to fix it." "That's—" "You can't," Elton stammered. The situation was deteriorating by the hour. 24 hours wouldn't resolve the structural issues, but it could determine everything that followed once they were addressed. As a pause, you have a plan. I always have a plan. Some are simply less conventional than others. That evening, Iris called again. Brooke had been locked in closed-door meetings all afternoon. "Something is happening." "Good," I replied. "Is it?" "Elton is telling everyone the entire project must be abandoned." 3 years of work erased. "My work," I reminded her, "and it's not going anywhere." The next morning, I dressed carefully in the only professional outfit I owned, a charcoal gray suit I'd worn to my grandmother's funeral 3 years earlier. I pulled my unruly hair into a neat bun, applied minimal makeup, and slipped on the pearl earrings my mother had given me for graduation. Today wasn't about appearances. It was about power. The board meeting was set for 10 a.m. At 9:30, I walked into company headquarters as if I still belonged there. The security guard, someone other than Dennis, looked up in surprise but said nothing as I headed to the elevator. The executive floor was silent, tense. Through the glass walls, I could see board members gathering in the main conference room. Elton stood at the head of the table, gesturing with rehearsed emphasis. Brooke sat to his right, hands folded tightly. I didn't enter. Instead, I settled into a chair in the adjacent waiting area, directly in Brooke's line of sight. When she finally looked up, our eyes met. Something passed between us, perhaps understanding, perhaps a challenge. The board chairman called the meeting to order. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the room. Elton's practiced confidence, the board members' concern, Brooke's rigid posture. 10 minutes in, Elton projected graphs showing system failures. 15 minutes in, he openly blamed my experimental, undocumented methodology for the collapse. 20 minutes in, Brooke rose. I leaned forward, watching her lips as she spoke. The board members' expressions shifted from concern to surprise to near shock. Elton tried to interrupt, but the chairman silenced him. Brooke continued, occasionally glancing toward me. Whatever she was saying, it wasn't the narrative Elton had prepared. At precisely 10:37 a.m., the boardroom door opened. A security guard approached. "Miss Zephyr, the board requests your presence." I nodded, stood, smoothed my jacket, and followed him into the lion's den. Silence fell. Every head turned, some curious, some hostile, some unreadable. "Thank you for joining us," the chairman said, measured. "Miss Brooke has provided revelatory insight about your traffic system design." I nodded silently. She maintains that the current failures are not due to flaws in your original design, but to misapplication of conventional algorithms to your, what did you call it? Adaptive architecture? Brooke replied, ignoring Elton's glare. "Yes," the chairman continued. "She further suggests that you alone fully understand how to operate the system properly, and that your dismissal was precipitous." I turned to Elton, whose face had flushed an unhealthy red. "Precipitous?" I repeated, an interesting word choice for firing the one person who understood the multi-million-dollar system you'd contracted to deliver to the city. "Now see here," Elton began, but the chairman raised a hand. "Miss Zephyr, the situation is critical. The city is threatening legal action for breach of contract. Our reputation is suffering immeasurable harm. We need solutions, not recriminations." I nodded calmly, which is why I've accepted a position as direct consultant to the mayor's office. Effective immediately. The room erupted in murmurs. The chairman banged a small gavel for order. "You've what?" Elton sputtered. "The city has exercised its contractual right to engage independent expertise," I explained. "When the primary contractor fails to deliver functional infrastructure, that's you. They've hired me to fix it." "That's—" "You can't," Elton stammered.